In today's video, we're addressing the latest NHL trade rumors, focusing on teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Montreal Canadiens, the Calgary Flames, Boston Bruins, the San Jose Sharks, and the Edmonton Oilers. We also have several key updates from the Board of Governors meetings, including updates on the salary cap, the 24 NHL draft, international competition, and more. Plus, we have all kinds of updates regarding injuries as well, and a fairly substantial update on the Arizona Coyotes arena situation. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we do have a lot to cover here today. Of course, today is Tuesday, but several people are calling it Hughes Day. It's going to be the first time ever that all three Hughes brothers play in an NHL game tonight. The New Jersey Devils visit the Vancouver Canucks. So for the first time, you will have Luke and Jack against Quinn, all in the same game. Of course, Quinn and Jack have played against each other before, but since Luke has been drafted, any games involving the Devils and Canucks have not featured him until tonight. So for the first time, all three brothers, which is a rare thing. It's been accomplished by some other brother family members throughout the past in the NHL, but it's not very common. So I know the Hughes family, their parents are going to be in town for the game, so certainly quite an accomplishment. All three are having phenomenal seasons, especially Quinn and Jack, both arguably the best on their team, leading the way in the NHL scoring races as well, right up near the top. So it's going to be a fun game to watch this evening. We do have several updates regarding injuries and roster moves in Calgary. Yesterday, we talked about Jacob Markstrom, the Flames goalie, having an issue with his hand, leaving practice after making a glove save and having a lot of blood, obviously, on the ice and through his glove. He did end up with a fractured finger, and he is listed now as week to week. So that's certainly not great news. So Dan Vladar will get the start in their next game, and Dustin Wolf has been officially recalled. In Ottawa, Thomas Chabot is going to be out yet again. He did leave the last game with a lower body injury. Looks like it was probably a knee, but we don't know 100%. All we know is his lower body. He didn't return, sat out towards the end of the game. Of course, they were playing with 7D and had a lead, so it made sense for him not to chance anything for precautionary reasons to stay out. But he is going to require an MRI. He's definitely going to miss tonight's game against the New York Rangers. As far as how much time he misses beyond that, we don't know. We'll have to wait for the MRI results and kind of go from there. So Sens fans are not looking forward to bad news. He missed 10 games, only came back and played 2, and then got hurt again. So we'll see what the news is there. Of course, Ridley Gregg returns for Ottawa in tonight's game as well. The Avalanche have recalled their first-round pick from 2021, Oscar Olofsson, so he should hopefully get into the lineup. Tage Thompson returns tonight for the Buffalo Sabres. I do wonder, based on the timelines and everything, if he might be returning a little bit early. I just hope that he's fully healthy and recovered and doesn't end up, re-aggravating something and being out longer because of it, because we have seen that occur before. We know the Sabres have struggled as of late, don't have a great record in the last 5 to 10 games, so clearly they could use him. I just hope that he is good to go and not rushing things. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is ill and will miss their next game as well. So Devin Levi has been recalled from the minors. The Coyotes also saw arguably their top defenseman, Sean Durzi, get injured last night as well. We don't have an exact timeline for his return, but he is going to miss some time. The Coyotes absolutely spanked the Capitals last night, 6-0. It was 5-0 by the end of the first. I thought it might get really bad, but it ultimately they kind of slowed down and only scored one more goal the rest of the way. Early in the second, they had a 2-0 while Washington was on the power play. It was an absolutely embarrassing performance by the Washington Capitals. We've seen different versions of this team this year. Early on, we thought they were going to be really bad this year, and then they turned things around, got going, and then they've had some real stinkers since then. So would the real Washington Capitals please stand up? I don't know which team we're getting here, but certainly an embarrassment last night. The Coyotes have now defeated the last 5 Stanley Cup champions in reverse order, which I don't know if the schedule makers did anything with that intentionally or not. Probably not, but looking at the last 5 Cup winners, they beat Vegas, they beat the Avalanche, they beat the Lightning, they beat the Blues, and they beat the Capitals in that order. It's kind of crazy. Like that's the I believe the only time that's happened since the original 6. It's pretty crazy. So the Coyotes are for real. They're actually playing really well, and I think they legit do have a shot to be a playoff team this year. And we're going to talk a bit about them more in the Board of Governors meetings as well. Montreal, Arbor Jacki has gone down to Laval. I did see I don't want to call it a bit of a crazy story from Georges Larac, who I know is a former player, played for the Habs, does media in Montreal, obviously has connections. But some of the stuff he says is sometimes a little bit out there. But he was saying that Marty St. Louis was really unhappy with recent performances of Jacki and had ripped into him for being too aggressive and being overly aggressive to the point that he was making mistakes and causing goals against. And that they had, a bit of a, Jacki, I guess you could say, adjusted his game to be less aggressive. And then, now he's being sent to Laval. Anyways, it's just like more of a case of, kind of trying to stir the pot, maybe saying there's a bit of a relationship issue there. I don't know if there's really anything to make of that or not. Montreal has tons of defensemen, many of which are waivers exempt. They can go down to Laval when they need to, and this is just a case of that. I don't think there's anything more to it, but we'll see. I wouldn't be too concerned if I'm Montreal fans. I don't know if there's really a whole lot of anything going on with that story, but thought I'd mention it since it has been out there. Board of Governors meetings, all kinds of stuff from Gary Bettman and the league today. We did get updates on the salary cap. Everything is on pace. U.S. revenues, I believe it was over $6 billion. So everything's on pace for the escrow to be repaid and the salary cap to rise a normal 5%. Which, if that's what it is, would rise to $87.7 million next year. Of course, it's not a firm number. That's just the minimum. The league and the PA can negotiate an additional amount if they feel it's justified above that. So we'll see where that goes. I know Marty Walsh, the PA head, was talking in a recent interview saying $5 million, where this 87.7 would only be 4.2. So they're certainly going to push for more because the more money in the system benefits the players for sure. So, but it's good news that the league's on track. Revenues are good. We should at the very least get a 5% cap increase next year, which will be great for a lot of teams. The NHL draft in 2024 appears to be set to take place in Vegas at the Sphere, June 28th, 29th, according to some of the reporters that were there covering the meetings today. That has been just confirmed. I know I heard earlier today that from Elliot Friedman in a radio hit that he said they were going to be talking about it this afternoon, and the main thing that was being presented was the cost associated to have everything hosted at the Sphere, and if they review the cost and are okay with it and everybody moves forward, then it'd be happening. So it appears to be confirmed now, so that should be a very interesting event this coming summer, which is going to be their last traditional format drop before things get decentralized. So obviously that's going to be interesting. There was some talk, of course, about expansion, but not a whole lot, just saying that there's lots of interest from different ownership groups and cities out there, but it's not a front burner issue right now. They did talk about the fact that they do have some concerns, which was not something anybody wants to hear regarding the 2026 Olympics in Italy, saying that the rink in Milan has not even begun construction yet, which, when you look at NHL arenas, how long they take to be built, I mean, I guess I can see why there might be concern there, but, just the way Bettman focused on it, you kind of get the impression he doesn't really want to go, but the players want to. When it comes to the international event coming up, the World Cup will be watered down this time around in 2025, and it looks like it's going to be Canada, U.S., Finland, and Sweden only, which is, I don't know what that's going to be like, and they hope the one after that will be full-fledged, including Russia and some other countries as well. It was asked about the 2018 Hockey Canada investigation with the World Junior team, and he said they're nearing conclusion. We've been hearing that for a long time. He said it's very complicated for a variety of reasons, and they're getting closer to being at the finish line, but not there yet, and hoping it won't take too much longer. I suspect that it's probably local authorities in London, Ontario. It might be what's holding things up. I don't really know, but it'd be nice to finally find out if players from that team were, did they actually, is there enough evidence to say they're guilty of something? Will they be punished? What's it going to be? It's been dragging on forever and a day, so I think for everybody's sake, it'd be nice to have that wrapped up, but we don't know when that's going to take place. Now, onto the Coyotes, because, it's a hot topic that pretty much every time in the last year or two that there's been a Board of Governors meeting, there's certainly enough of the governors that are anxious for this to move forward here and get things sorted with the Coyotes, that it's always at the very least raised as a question in looking for updates. So according to Darren Dreger of TSN today, he said that not to expect a whole lot of talks around the Coyotes and their new arena at this Board of Governors meeting, but the Coyotes are apparently close to purchasing some land in the Phoenix area, which apparently is in the Desert Ridge area. I'm not overly familiar because obviously I'm not local to that. I'm sure if you live in that area, you probably know what we're talking about. But they're close to purchasing some land for a new arena build, and they're hoping to be able to announce some plans within the next month or so. Like I said before, I think the kind of cutoff date that the league has to have something in place is probably like February. So considering we're in December now, that makes sense. If they don't get something lined up, next 4 to 6 weeks into, late January, early February, they might run out of time. But for right now, that's the latest on that. Sens owner Michael Landlauer did some interviews as well, talking about a variety of things, including a lot of fans chiming in through social media, as well as in the crowds at the arenas looking for a coaching change due to the slow start of the team. He preached patience again, essentially said he totally understands the fans have been, 6 years without playoffs, and the previous ownership and regime might have, not had the greatest relationship. And there's just the team has been through a lot, essentially, just to sum it up. And he gets that the fans are, anxious for success and that they want things to be moving forward in a positive direction. But he's not going to make hasty moves. Like, he's not going to fire the coach just for the sake of firing the coach. He didn't expect to have to relieve Pierre Dorion as quickly as he did. That's not something he really planned or wanted to do. But of course, because of the actions from that trade that led to punishment to the team, it was the right thing to do. So he said, again, preaches patience and saying that he understands, but, kind of trust the process and try to be patient if you can as they move forward and navigate through everything. He's been touring arenas, including where the meetings were in Seattle, so he got to tour Climate Pledge Arena. He already had a chance to see the UBS Belmont Arena for Long Island. He plans to see the Oilers Arena and get a full tour and everything coming up in January when the Sens visit the Oilers for a game. Obviously gathering lots of intel and details and everything about a potential new Senators Arena for downtown Ottawa. Hopefully coming soon in a few years, but certainly needs to do all kinds of research around how that's, what they want, and, obviously start putting plans together. They got to figure out what land it's going to be. But they did get an extension with LeBreton for a year after he took ownership, since it was the previous ownership and regime who made all those arrangements and got things to the point that they did. So he was able to get an extension for a year before they can make a decision there, so they don't have to decide till next fall. They're looking at other areas downtown as well. So certainly sounds like he's got everything well on track, and I think Sens fans are in good hands, I guess we can say. Also talk as well, the Montreal Canadiens were hoping to get involved in the next NHL Global Series. They'd like to play some games in Paris, France, apparently. They were hoping that might be possible for next season. Apparently that's not likely going to take place, but it is quite possible that maybe the year after, for 25-26, we may see games in Paris involving the Habs and another NHL team. Onto the rumor mill of the video. One player I want to take a look at, because he's been in the rumor mill for quite some time, is Noah Hanifin of the Calgary Flames. Certainly a player that's been getting lots of attention. There was some reports from Elliot Friedman talking about how the Arizona Coyotes were kind of pursuing him and were very interested. Makes sense, and it, considering how well the Coyotes have been playing, and the fact that they've lost Sean Durzi and now to injury for at least a period of time, I wouldn't be surprised if they do go out and make an addition in the near future. They're certainly justified in doing so, given how well the team has played this year. But apparently, according to TVA Sports' Renaud Lavoie, he says a lot of teams are reluctant to trade for Hanifin for a couple of reasons. One, the Flames are pushing a contract extension to go with him so that they get max value, of course, which makes sense from their standpoint. But the problem is a lot of teams are reluctant to do that because they know that he probably won't sign there because his heart is in Boston. He says that Hanifin, just like the Bruins have been pursuing him for basically since he's been drafted, that the feeling is mutual and he really would like to be a Boston Bruin. Of course, he was born and raised in that area. It's local for him, long connection to the team, and that's where he wants to go, and that's where a lot of people expect him to go as a free agent if he makes it there next summer. So Boston might be the only team that he might be willing to do an extension with to maximize Calgary's value. And if that's the case, I'm not sure what kind of return they'd be looking for from the Bruins. But obviously, I know there's some questions about the future of Jake DeBrusk in Boston. I know he's obviously having done a lot better since the coaching change. But until he's signed and there's more certainty on his future, there's certainly some question marks. Would the Bruins have to move a defenseman out? I mean, they have a pretty deep blue line core now as it is. So it's hard to say what exactly a trade would look like if he does end up there. We know the Bruins are certainly in a strong position to be another contending year for them. But whether or not they add Hanifin ahead of the deadline or they pursue him as a free agent is another story. Time will tell, but it does sound like ultimately there's mutual interest for him to end up there, and it sounds like it probably will get done one way or another, whether it be at the deadline or like before the deadline or in the summertime. So we'll see where that goes. San Jose Sharks defenseman Muriel Ferraro, as we discussed from the reports on Saturday Night Headlines from Elliot Friedman, has been getting some attention. According to reports, the main teams that have been pursuing and having conversations around him so far include the New Jersey Devils and the New York Islanders. Now, of course, makes sense. The Islanders had lost Adam Pelech and Sebastian Aho to injury, and of course the Devils had lost Dougie Hamilton for a long-term injury. So they certainly have some cap flexibility with the LTIR, and obviously are looking to make some replacements so that they can continue to, be a strong team and get into playoffs. I mean, he would be a great help to a lot of clubs, but he comes with terms, so he's not just a rental player. So there's lots to like about his game. The age fits well with a lot of these teams as well. Hard to say exactly, where he ends up or what the trade looks like. But it's no surprise that he's generating lots of interest, and those teams make perfect sense if they do end up, pulling the deal off by any means. There's also some talk from fourthperiod.com and Anthony DeMarco about Flyers defenseman Rasmus Ristolainen, that he certainly could be available for trade, and that there's teams that are still value him around the league and see him as somebody who's built for a good playoff team. Then he connects the Toronto Maple Leafs as being a team of interest. Of course, we know that there's lots of acknowledgement of their interest in Chris Tanev of the Flames, but could Ristolainen be an alternate option they look at instead? Obviously, Ristolainen comes at a bit of a younger age. He also has a completely different contract than Tanev, so it wouldn't necessarily be a rental situation. They've seen Ristolainen play plenty when he was with the Buffalo Sabres, obviously with the Flyers in the Eastern Conference, seen him play there as well. So, I don't know. For me, I think Ristolainen might be a little bit overpaid for what he brings, but if you want that physical style, you want that type of defenseman, I do think he could be good in playoffs if he can get there. I mean, we haven't seen Ristolainen in the playoffs as of yet based on the teams he's played for so far, but, barring a Tanev not working out, could Ristolainen be a player that the Leafs turn their attention to? It'd be interesting to get some opinions on that. I mean, like I said, he wouldn't just be a rental, and could be a player that the Flyers are willing to move on from. So we'll have to see where that goes. I mean, the Flyers would be looking for some young players in return, and the Leafs certainly have a few players, whether it be Liljegren or Robertson or, some of their other higher picks, which I don't think they'd want to move on from. But, obviously I think Fraser Minton and Easton Cowan made good impressions on them, and I think they'd be inclined to want to keep those guys, but we'll see. I mean, there's also Bobby McMahon, for example, as well. So we'll see what happens, but could be a team to watch for potential Leaf trade in Edmonton. There's word as well from Kevin Weeks that the Oilers are shopping young defenseman Philip Broberg. And to me, this is another sign that Ken Holland's not really in charge anymore, considering he drafted him as a first-round pick just a few years back. I wouldn't think he'd personally want to give up on him so soon, but the organization and the other executives here, including Jeff Jackson, who's kind of pulling the strings, not so much by the sounds of things. So looks like they're not looking for picks in return, that they would like another player in return, another player hopefully of similar age, early 20s, that might be able to need a fresh start and do like a swap. So like we're looking at, for example, they now TVA Sports connected them to Montreal. I wonder where the Oilers are looking for help in goaltending. Would they offer Broberg for Caden Primo? Lots of speculation in Montreal about who's going to go in the goalie world. Is it going to be Jake Allen? Is it going to be Caden Primo? Would they trade Primo for a defenseman like Broberg? I would say I don't think so. I'd say probably not. Not that they wouldn't like Broberg, but they do have an abundance of D. I think that if they're going to be able to pry Primo out of Montreal, then it's going to be a different kind of player to do so. At least I would think. But that's my take on that. But Morgan Frost comes to mind in Philadelphia. That might be an option, but it would have to be a player because of cap. It's money in, money out. So the contract on the other side of things is very much going to play a role as well. Frost might make a little bit too much money for it to be straight up. It would have to be something else included there as well. But he is available according to Kevin Weeks, and certainly looking for a potential fresh start somewhere else. That is all your news and notes for now, so let me know your thoughts on what we discussed today down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.